But in Acts 17:38, here is what this verse says. For in him, for in God, we live. Now this is not Zoe as life as God has it. This is Zaho. It's living. It's just living and being. Or it's the action, the blessedness, the endlessness in the kingdom of God. It's living. But we do it in God. And in God we move. And in God we have our being. For we are also what? His offspring. We are his offspring. We moved on to 1 John 4:17. Now what I want to get you is involved in these statements. Herein is our love made perfect or complete, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Because as he, Jesus, is, so are we in this world. As he is, so are we in this world. So last week's conclusion was we live in his presence, and he will not deny his own image or his own offspring, which is the believer. Today I want to take a few moments and just focus before we get into the next part of the message, and that is, let's focus on our. Let me ask a question. You can nod your head, wave, raise a hand, say that's me, or you can just be quiet, and I will guess how that goes. All right? Let me read it to you. Do we focus on our surroundings or our circumstances? Do we? You could sit there and shake your head no. I see. You're going to shake your head yes. Do we focus on our emotions and or our feelings? Proper response is this. What? We're still a work in progress? Huh? Oh, you're going to say so too. You're going to get her off the hot seat. You're going to, all right. So, all right. Let me do this with you. In Ephesians 2:19, here he states something. Now therefore, ye are no more strangers or foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God. That's who you are. 2:22. In whom ye also are builded together, or in union with, for a habitation of God through the Spirit. Now, let me ask you this. If I ask you what reconciliation does, what does it do? What does reconciliation do? Huh? We are the ministers of reconciliation, so surely we know what we do. Affirmative. We are the ministers of reconciliation. All right? What does ministers of reconciliation do? It is to bring about the divine exchange. Jesus took our sin and gave us righteousness. But he's already taken the sin of the whole world, so in him, we believe he exchanges our sin for his righteousness. The divine exchange, reconciliation. Like that? That's what we are. We're ministers of reconciliation. Paul used three metaphors in the scriptures that we just read, describing both Jew and Gentile. The new position before God. They're fellow citizens with God. That's what you are. Fellow citizens with God. Of the same household. Part of God's building. Those who are ignited with Christ through the new birth are inseparably a part of God. Actually called in verse 21, a holy temple. The other day when I read these, I inserted something else. There is no place for replacement theology. You say, what are you saying? Replacement theology. Everybody know what that is? It's taken from the Jew, give to the Gentile, and the Jew, you replace them. If we read these verses, we find out that he's talking to Jew and Gentile together. There's only one new body, a holy temple, that's in Christ, fellow citizens of the kingdom. All right? Christ himself is called the chief cornerstone, on whom every structure is aligned perfectly. Now, what I'm going to tell you is, I'm going to share with you, is something that happened in the last 3 weeks. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about, other than when I heard aligned perfectly. I heard that via telephone call just 3 days ago, thereabout. I got a call, and a guy in the Midwest, farther west, had tried to blow up a tire. The wheel, the rim itself, smashed it, come up and smashed his face. Literally breaking his cheekbones, his jaw, various teeth out, and literally shattered his nose. Off he went to the hospital. They took a look at him and said, because he's on, I don't know, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever he was on, plastic surgeons there in the area was not about to touch him. The work would be extensive. Regular doctor wasn't much he was going to do. These things, this is bones that are shattered, crushed. Interesting thing is, his winter wood wasn't up yet, but the neighbors put his winter wood up or else delivered it. He has horses because he's a wagon train leader. You know, when they take these trips with wagon trains, he leads them. Can't go outdoors, can't get infection. Neighbors does his chores. Bills are going to be astronomical. Money comes in, eases the pain of that. So on it goes. It runs on a couple of weeks, and they said there's a plastic surgeon that will see you in another town, in another area, and if you'd go see him. So he went. The plastic surgeon took all kinds of x-rays of his face. All kinds of them. When he got all done with his examination, he took a look at him and said, there's not a thing I can do. It's already been done. All the bones are perfectly aligned to heal. Perfectly aligned to heal. The lady that was calling me was a little bit excited. Perfectly aligned. I heard that perfectly aligned. I said, well, they're going to get the story whether it matches the sermon or not. Perfectly aligned does. Understand the supernatural work of God. These believers, as we've read here, are carefully joined, constantly growing temples inhabited by God, Jews and Gentiles. An ever-growing spiritual structure indwelt by God, whereas God's building is sometimes called the house of God. In reality, believers are the temple of God. We are the temple of the living God, as God has said in 2 Corinthians 6:16, I will dwell in them, walk in them, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Listen, I will dwell in them. God said, I will dwell in them, walk in them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. That's a fact. That's a done deal. In the reality of who we are, due to the fact that He lives in us, that the surrounding circumstances, our feelings and emotions should be viewed from the inner life, not the outer life. Viewed from here, not out here. Let me just say this. We cannot afford the luxury of being influenced by all these things that surround us in circumstances, feelings, and emotions. Wow. So let me recommend something. Adjust your focus. 8:16 of Romans says, the Spirit itself, or Himself, beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children, the offspring, the children, the sons of God. Union with the Spirit. Oh, we need to get this. I've tried to mention it before. We need to get this part. Union of the Spirit with Spirit. This union produces offspring of God, birthed by the Spirit. We are of supernatural birth of the Spirit. Similar substance abides in and through us. We are the temple. Wow. The habitat, the household. The witness. God cannot be seen. You ever notice? His Spirit cannot be seen. Ever notice? Sins cannot be seen. You ever notice? You can understand the results of them easily enough. We don't know what they look like when they're forgiven, but we do not have to wonder. If God has forgiven our sins, He sends His Spirit who constantly assures or witnesses to us of His reality, forgiveness, and love of His presence in our lives. His presence will negate the circumstances, the surroundings, the emotions, the feelings, the insecurities, the hopelessness, my inability to achieve. Have you ever noticed? I'm going to share this with you. I am finding more and more recently that no matter what, He keeps me pretty much on a schedule. It doesn't make any difference how many people come or go. I'm on His schedule. And on His schedule, He orchestrates me, organizes me. I got time for Him, I got time for others, and I got time to take care of the things that we have to take care of. Ruth would say, not at home, and that may be true. Quite likely it's true. Zach come to fix the faucet last night, and I went to bed. Okay? It's time to go to bed. You say, what kind of guy are you? I'm me. Priority is not the faucet. You say it dripped, it ran. It did, I admit. Priority is not the faucet. Zach's on his way to handle it, Zach. I'm going to bed. Ruth looked at me and she says, you're not. I said, I am. She says, you're like your brother. I says, yeah, partly. He has guests in his house, and it comes time for him to go to bed. He gets up and goes to bed. Lets his wife deal with it. So I let Ruth deal with Zach. He orchestrates our life. It is interesting to me. I sat in a motel a couple of weeks ago or three, and Ruth come back in. I just finished up. I sat in another motel yesterday afternoon. I just finished up. Took a look at it. Ruth walked in the door. Done. On schedule. At the appointed time. What was it? This was done. What you're getting this morning was done. It makes you do certain things. It makes you establish what is the priority. All right? Wow. Therefore, number one, I'm going to talk about a series of trees this morning. There's another, yeah, these trees will talk to you. They will. You say, you talk to a tree? Well, I haven't recently. Under circumstances, I could probably be agreed to talk to a tree. But anyhow, here we go. Number one, and here's the introduction to it. We are to be possessors of his presence, not pretenders. You ever pretend to be in his presence? Don't you know God knows the difference? And if he chooses to reveal it to others, he'll do that too. Years ago, I had a guy say to me, a kid, we was in high school. He says, he professed salvation. You know what happened? I found him where I was at, and that was not the best place to be for somebody professing salvation. And we'll go no further with that. And he looked at me and said, don't tell your dad. I said, why are you worrying about dad? God knows what's going on with you. Dad is a non-issue as far as I could tell. Now, as a sinner, I recognize that. Whoa. We are to be containers of his presence, not empty pretenders. We are not a barren first tree. We are not a barren tree without a husbandman, without a caretaker. We are not a barren tree without a gardener and without an intercessor. We are not. So here comes the first tree, Matthew 21, verse 19. And when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it and found nothing thereon, but leaves only, and said unto it, let no fruit grow on thee. For how long? Henceforward. That takes care of it. Forever. And presently the fig tree withered away. You say, well, that was pretty tough. It didn't have any figs. Somebody picked them all. Something happened to them. Didn't have any figs. Got to be a natural reason. Would not the Son of God knew? How come he went over to that tree? Mark 11, 13, and 14. Let's take a look at those, if we can. He's seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves. Let me just do this with you. A type of fig tree that grows in Jerusalem produces figs before it produces leaves. Not ripe figs, but figs, nonetheless. It wasn't time for the figs yet, but also it wasn't time for leaves either. So if the leaves are on it, there should have been figs, ripe or not. The fig tree, according to one writer says, was a hypocrite. It professed something it didn't possess. You say, well, that's pretty blunt. Okay, so we got the time of figs was not yet. Now look at here. This is for years has intrigued me. And Jesus answered and said unto it. The fig tree spoke to him. And Jesus answered the fig tree. Is that true? That's exactly true. No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it. He spoke to that. The tree says, I got figs. Didn't have any figs. Jesus answered it, and said, you know, isn't it interesting? This ongoing conversation. In verse 20 of Matthew 21:20, and when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, how soon is the fig tree withered away? And then he went into instructions about prayer, of which I'm not talking about this morning. I'm talking about trees. This tree was a barren tree without a husbandman, without an intercessor. The second tree I want to talk about, the barren fruit tree with a gardener, a husbandman, with God as the owner. See, there's kind of interchanges in here where how the conversations go, the stories go, they kind of change spots occasionally. So here comes the second parable, the second story. God is the owner and Jesus as the vine dresser. The conversation is now not between Jesus and the tree. The conversation now is between the Father and the Son. Luke 13, beginning with verse 6. He spake unto this parable, a certain man had a fig tree in his vineyard. Okay? And he came and sought fruit thereon, found none. Then said he unto the dresser, the vine dresser, the gardener of his vineyard, behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none. Cut it down. It just cumbers the ground. Cut it down. And he answered and said unto him, who did? The intercessor. Lord, let it alone this year also. Say owner, Lord, owner. Let it alone this year also till I dig about it, dung it. That's fertilize it in our language today. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. So the intercessor voiced his opinion about this and answered the Lord. I tell you, it's a good thing we got in an intercessor on our behalf. He is still trying to develop us to bear fruit. To bear fruit. 3, living in the presence of the Father, God, in this case, the husbandman, and Jesus, the true vine. There's no conversation here. Jesus is preaching. He's stating facts. He's establishing IDs. He's establishing results of fruit, more fruit, much fruit. And he begins with the first verse of chapter 15 of John. I am, Jesus says, the true vine. My Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. Remember the wicked tree? Every branch in me that beareth fruit, he purges it, that it brings forth more fruit. Have you ever been purged? Now, did it hurt? What did it hurt? He didn't saw off a leg or an arm or anything. Where did it hurt? It hurt inside, eh? Absolutely right. Because he's cleansing you. But your want to is to be what he wants. Not what you want, what he wants. And then when he fine-tunes you, and what do you get? You're still a tad uncomfortable, but you say, yes, sir, or words to that effect. Because I want to be what you want me to be. I want to grow and produce as you want me to grow and produce. I can't do that apart from you. Wow. So, I am the true vine. My Father is the husbandman. See, there's a new race of people that we have here is viewed. We originate in Christ. If I said organically related to him, well, we're spiritually related to him, united to him. The branches attached to the vine. The entire economy being under the care of the Father, the vine dresser. The union between the vine and the branches is characterized by the expression, in me, in you. Every branch in me that beareth fruit, beareth not fruit, the Father taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he, the Father, purges it, or cleanses it, that it may bring forth more fruit. He doesn't remodel you physically. This is a spiritual application. Do I deal with that? We'll see. There is no shortcut in this, by the way. No shortcut. Some develop faster than others, be that as it may. No shortcut. Okay. Wow. We must grow. 1 Peter 2:2 says this, as newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby. We're supposed to hunger for the word of God. Let me ask you, do you want the word there constantly or consistently? You got a choice? Both? Well, constantly. You got a choice, Gary? I don't think it's constant. Consistent, though, is very relevant to this situation. Consistent. Mothers do not deny their children milk. Grandmas and great-grandmas don't deny the children milk. You ever notice? We as children of God, we desire milk. We're going to develop on that until we get to the place we can eat meat. Wow. Because Hebrews 5 talks about that. You can jot that down. We don't have a note on it. Whew. It's essential for our spiritual growth as a mother's milk is to a baby. Verse 3 of John 15. Now ye are clean, purged, clean through the word, which I have spoken unto you. I'm going back now to a topic that I dropped here a minute ago, because in my notes it says this. God doesn't need the devil's help. Huh? Satan's doing this to me to develop me. God doesn't need Satan's help. Whew. Oh boy. 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. Some of my all scripture, or the word, is given by inspiration of God, is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction. Do we see that? For instruction in righteousness. Why? That the man of God may be perfect, complete, mature, thoroughly furnished, thoroughly equipped unto all good works. Is that every? Furnished unto all. Any, every, or the whole of good works. What does that? The Word of God. He doesn't need Satan's help. You choose your method of learning. Hello? Whoa. Let me do this with you. Wow. I don't even know where I'm at. Oh, there we are. Verse 4 of John 15. Chapter 1. John 15, verse 4, excuse me. Abide in me, and I in you. Abiding is the issue. This is the key fact of fruit bearing. Abiding in him. You abide in him, you'll bear fruit. Abiding is the issue, the must, the factor of fruit bearing. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself except it abide in the vine, no more can ye except ye abide in me. Abide in a given place, abide in a state, abide in a relation, and abide in a state of expectancy. The dictionary defines abide as remain, stay, dwell. Let me back up. How many of us has a state of expectancy that we're going to bear fruit? Huh? You. I'm talking about you. As the guy said, us'uns. Winans. That's how he talked. Usins and Winans. At about 16 years old, living on rescue mission, or in empty buildings, he'd run over by train. End of life. Wow. Did he have the same breaks you didn't? No. Did Jesus visit him? Absolutely. Absolutely. The word abide stresses, again, consistency. Going through spells where we really seek God will not substitute for abiding in God. Do I need to say more about that? Huh? Let me read it one more time. Going through spells where we really seek God will not substitute for abiding in God. This is one major reason why more Christians don't experience the abundant life of Jesus that he came to bring, because I am come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Abiding in him. Most people only really abide in Jesus when things get tough. When the pressure lets up, they relax and go back to doing their own thing. You ever notice? That hastens the next crisis. That's all it does. Hastens the next crisis. I am the vine, verse 5, and ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth now much fruit. For without me you can do nothing. Whoa, Lynn, what are you saying here? The word won't work if it's choked. What can it be choked with? Mark 4 goes ahead and tells you. Cares of the world, deceitfulness of riches, lusts of other things. They enter in, they choke the word. So you're back looking at circumstances, etc. Is that happening? Oh, okay. The simple truth is, the key to bearing fruit is so easy to forget. Because the fruit is born on the branch. It's easy to credit the branch with the fruit on it, when it's the vine's life inside it that come up through the branch and bore the fruit on you. You bear fruit, you just sit back and say, God, you're doing good. That's exactly, because it's his life. It's not yours. Look at, whoa, that branch, you're nothing more than a conduit. I don't know if what that does to your ego. I'm not really too concerned about it. You are a conduit. A conduit. I'm a tree in his garden, in his presence, living by his loving attention. I'm a tree in his garden, in his presence, living his life through me. I love that I have become his tree in his garden, in his kingdom. I love that I live in his presence. The divine flow of his life provides fruit for others. This is my reason. This is my purpose for living. Doing what comes naturally, supernaturally. Catch that? Doing what comes naturally, supernaturally. Wow. 4. The ever-bearing tree is never separated from its source of life. Psalms 1 through 3. Blessed or happy is the man that walketh not in the counsel or the advice of the ungodly. Nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor stand in the road of sinners, the way they go, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, the mockers. But his delight, his pleasure is in the law of the Lord. Let me just make this statement. This is speaking of Moses' writings, first 5 books of the Old Testament. And his law doth he meditate day and night with delight and pleasure. Today, if you thought about it, it would be love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy mind, and all thy strength, and thy neighbor as thyself. With pleasure and delight. So now let me mix verse 1 and verse 3. Blessed, happy is the man that walketh in the counsel of the Lord, planted in his garden, drawing living water from the source of all living. And he shall be as a tree planted. Do you know? I did not know till I looked it up this week. That tree planted by the water is transplanted there. That's what the Hebrew of that says. Planted, transplanted. I thought, wow, that's like you and I. We've been transplanted by the river of living water. Woo. Amen. Yeah. One of these days you're going to, glory. All right. By the rivers of water, and bring forth, whose fruit? Bring forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither. Whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Amen. Allow me to conclude this morning. Are you ready? Let me say this with you. I am a tree transplanted by the river of living water. I'm attached to the roots that are filled with the divine flow, his living presence. His living flow floods my members. I live his chosen life for me. I live his chosen life for me. He chose my life. He chose my activity. He chose ministry. He chose whatever he chose. I am not to get wrapped up in what he didn't choose. Wow. My leaves do not wither, for my strength is drawn from his strength. His life in me. My core is his image. He purchased my spirit and body. His word is engrafted in me, therefore my soul is saved. Sozoed, right? Amen, brother. Okay. Safe, delivered, protected, preserved as a whole. Ongoing. Kingdom living is living in the presence of God, his life. I tell you, I should get our motor running. Mine's running. You say, well, you're you. Yeah, I am. But he's here. How do you know he's here? His Spirit is here. Been here. Is here. Glory. Father, these words are teaching us to live. Teaching us to live by a set of divine principles that you have ingrained in us, that we are living in your kingdom in the presence of the Godhead, and that presence is living in us. We are in divine union with you. That's it. We're in divine union with you. Oh, glory. Thank you. Thank you. This you've done for us. We don't do it for ourselves. You do it for us. We are your offspring. We are born of the Spirit. Spirit and Spirit, one. We are yours. This is a privilege and a pleasure to live your life victoriously and overcomingly. Absolutely. Glory. We are yours. We are yours. In the quietness of moments, when you whisper to us, draw close to me, come apart, listen. Whatever your words are, may we place close attention on the divine communication and say an everlasting yes to you. Oh, glory. Thank you. You're applying it in us. You're applying it to us. And it will live out through us. That life, that divine flow through us will be your fruit in your kingdom, in your garden. The intercessor will help us. The Spirit will empower us. This is your life. Your life. We're grateful for the privilege of living it. In Jesus' name, amen.